beauty of the world we live in. Yeah, Jay, welcome.
How are you? I'm so excited to introduce you to Piper. I just
Are you,
feel that you're kindred spirits, and there's so many ways that the two of you can work together. So this will just be the beginning.
have you seen the background? I mean, the home. I want
Oh,
that. I literally want to come home with you.
oh,
It's so beautiful,
You
and
are
I'm
welcome home anytime.
yeah,
thank
such a
you.
beautiful home. And
You're so
I
kind.
shouldn't
Thank
delay this.
you.
I shouldn't delay this. This is your time. Jay and Piper, please take the stage. Thank you for being here, and
Thank you for
I'm sure.
having me.
Our pleasure. It's an honor to be here.
It
Thank you,
is.
guys.
Yeah, yeah. So Piper,
Hello, Jay.
when Kunal suggested to me that we do this wonderful event, we have a dream, going from I have a dream to we have a dream as part of We the Planet. I couldn't
Yes.
think of anyone better to bring in and speak about these issues, especially on the day of international combating of violence and the day of nonviolence, than you. And I'm just so pleased to be here with you. So
I'm
without
so
further
pleased.
ado, without
I
further
love,
ado,
I'm loving this. We get to have this universality and this commune once again as a nation, as a people, as brethren across the borders, across ideologies, to have a platform for love and compassion and truth to finally ascend. This is perfect because we have been walking around with a wave of chaos and fear, thinking that the bating of our breath due to COVID and due to the pandemic and epidemic of fascism and poverty and fear and lack of work and violence, all of these things.
I would love to step back, Piper, and you and I always talk about how wouldn't it be cool if these great phone conversations we have are actually on tape and other people can attend. So we have this opportunity. Why don't we step back just for a moment and describe your really amazing background, even from early days, and how it's led to all the amazing work that you do.
Wow, it's amazing, Jay, because I was sitting right before we got on board and I heard my father's voice. There was always something. My father, as you know, was Ron Dellums, a U.S. congressman from Berkeley, Oakland, and mayor of Oakland, who passed away 2 years ago. And one of the things that he always said is the key to staying young is never embracing the idea of what I used to be, but who am I becoming? So as you ask this question, I'm reminded of the evolutionary ascension of who I'm becoming, but I can lay a platform for the road that I walked to get to where I am today. So on paper, it would look as if I'm a drama therapist. I'm the United Nations Delegate Commission on the Status of Women. I rescue women and children in all different ways as a public speaker, as an advocate from violence, abuse, trauma, trafficking. I'm the author of 15 books, the producer of numerous films, and I am an embracer and minister of the love of God and the universality of our commonality in every way, shape, and form. So I'm ascending outside of the dialogue of my DV and moving into the platform of recognizing that we are in oneness, and that if we don't ascend to that place of knowing that, we'll never get to that place of loving our neighbor as ourselves. So where I am now is I'm attempting to be one with all of it, but doing the work that I'm called to do in whatever way I can possibly do it.
You mentioned your dad. What an amazing inspiration he was to the world and to you, of course. Tell us about the roots that he planted in terms of the Black Caucus and the work he did for Nelson Mandela.
Oh, well, my father authored the Comprehensive Sanctions Act that ended apartheid. It actually took 15 years for it to pass because Ronald Reagan vetoed the bill. But it was the first time in congressional history that there was an override of a presidential veto in both the House and the Senate. My dad did a lot of work, stopping the MX missile, the B-2 bomber. He was on the forefront with Cesar Chavez. He was on the forefront of the civil rights movement. He was on the forefront with Harvey Milk of the gay rights movement. He was on the forefront of calling himself a feminist. He started the Congressional Black Caucus. He was a pioneer. He was, as his book suggested, he was laying down with the lions. He was a peacemaker, a peacemonger. He was a man of integrity and truth. He was my very best friend. He really wasn't a politician. He was a young kid from the ghettos of West Oakland that picked cotton and picked fruit and became a Marine, and found his way, ushered in by the, by the winds of change and trauma. And he had a voice, and he decided to use that voice. And that called him away from us a lot. It called him to the nations and to the world. But thank God, because like Nelson Mandela, the incarceration of a spirit that way will always find freedom, because they grab the mantle and they run with it. They say yes and amen to whatever they're called to do. And that's what he did until his very last breath. So.
What does interracial and intercultural dialogue mean to you in the context of our discussion today?
Well, this discussion to me is not just intergenerational, it's interhuman. I think one of the places, the foundation upon which my wisdom and understanding is coming into vision during this season, where I suggest that we are in the wilderness metaphorically right now. We've detached ourselves from what used to be Egypt, what used to be the kingdom, what used to be the world, the dialogue and the chaos and the consumerism and all that went with that great machine. And now we're in this place upon which I hear God calling out in the center of the garden, Adam, where are you? Piper, where are you? Jay, where are you? And what I think from that is not that he is calling us out of a demographic, but he's calling us back to ourselves, to our intention, to the imprint of being created in God's likeness and spirit. So I think with that, it erases the conversation of race. We are a human race. We are a unique imprint of culture. We're a unique imprint of our ancestry, of our thoughts, of our feelings, of our compassion, of our building. We need one another. We're a family of man. We are both Adam and Eve. We're both Cain and Abel. We're all unified. And I think that once we tear down the walls and the barriers, even having a dialogue that suggests that we are different one to another, but we're as different as every animal is in the veld. Yes, a zebra is not a giraffe, but they walk in rhythm and unification to keep an ecological balance moving forward. So we were created in this perfect dance, and we are, I suggest, one body. So I don't look at us as a different race. What I say is, what does the heart and the hand do in unification in the body to mobilize and to be productive? So I believe that we're the hands of God coming from all different areas of cellular design, but we're in one body and we're in perfection one to another. So I love and embrace that we are culturally different, but we are one race. We're the human race, and we're here to love one another.
100%. And in this day of divisiveness, how do we pull together? How do we ratchet down the rhetoric and come together as one and love one another?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I don't know if there is an answer. I think there will always be a balance in the earth. There will always be an opposite in the earth, because that keeps us in that homeostasis, that keeps us in perfect balance. There will be light and dark. There will always be up and down. There will be good and bad. There will be, that neutron, electron, and proton, and things pulling us in different directions, because it allows us to be committed not only to our faith, to prayer, but to one another. I think that the best way for us to come into unification is to go back to what is called the truth. We have been swayed with doctrine coming from different voices in different places, and yet we've stopped listening to the voice within. We've stopped studying and searching and seeking what truth is. We read a headline and we call it truth, and we continue with our day. But I think that we're called for seeds to be planted, for us to investigate the soil of our own existence, to water with the truth of our own experience, to allow the roots of our own connections to find our voices, because each and every one of us is made in the perfect imprint and image of God. So we have to separate ourselves from being yoked to a herd that's dragging us over hills or over mountainsides. And I think that this place of isolation, this time of being in this sacred sort of womb, is exactly what that's doing. What do? Is we get back to ourselves. We get back to truth. We start removing those fig leaves that we think define us. We take away our story. We take away our race. We take away our titles. We take away what we can get from the world. We stop covering up our insecurities and covering up the world in deception. And we find our way back to truth. Because once we find our way back to who we truly are, without all of that, once we remove that debris, then we cannot help but be unified, because we're then back to the sacred. We're back to exactly what we were created to be, a perfect vibration of creativity, of value, of grace, and of mercy. But we have to get there. We have to shed all of the lies and deceptions, because we're not our story. We're not our experiences. That's a classroom, and it's ushering us into this place. That's just what makes us strong. You know, slavery makes us strong. Holocaust makes us strong. Racism makes us strong. It's not there to tear us down. It's a Goliath that we can face with rocks of faith and take down, because we know who we are and whose we are. So you have to be sick to understand health. You know, you have to be cold to understand warmth. But if we're put in a pit, then we learn how to climb out. It strengthens our muscles, our spirit, and our soul. And when we get to that place and look in the mirror and say, oh, this is who I am, not who you say I am, but who God says I am, then we usher in the vibration of love. And just on a chemical, physical field, I mean, when you think about life, when you really think about who and what we are, God said, let there be light. What is that really? You know, that's quanta light, right? Quanta light particles, if we go to the science of it. You take quanta light and you bring that to God. You bring that to kinetic energy. You bring this together and it's atomic matter. You usher it all in and you have molecular structure. And everything that ever is made just up of light and kinetic energy and atomic matter. We're unified. We're one. So we strip away everything else. We get to that place and we make decisions with our thoughts, with the seeds from our mouth, with what we choose to listen to. And that will ascend us, will vibrate higher, and we can change the world simply through our thoughts, because our thoughts change our cellular bodies and everything in the world. Change your mind, change the world.
That's beautiful. Tell us about the work that you're doing currently on the nonviolence front, especially with vulnerable women and girls.
Yes, thank you so much even for bringing that up. I started off working with a gentleman named Joseph Natale at an organization that's sort of in a hidden location in Santa Barbara, rescuing teens off the streets from human trafficking. And not just rescuing for a moment, giving them housing, giving them permanence, giving them education, giving them therapy. I mean, I was their teacher. I was their drama therapist, their writing teacher, and I was attempting to allow them to find their voices through creativity so that we can heal whatever had been done to them through the evolutionary structure of them finding that their voice matters. And now I'm in Sacramento working with an organization, and we are rescuing women from domestic violence and children from trafficking. Domestic violence and human trafficking has grown exponentially during this time of COVID and isolation, because people are ushering in fear, trauma, addiction can no longer be hidden. A child no longer has a school to go to protect them, to get a meal, to get nurturance, and women who are suffering under abuse have no exit. So we're opening up the doors, the communication and conversation to let survivors know that we see them, we hear them, that they're valued, and that we have resources to assist them. Because we're busy looking at the news and seeing what's going on in Washington, but there's a lot going on behind closed doors. There's still shadow. We have to remember what's actually happening in the world outside of this dialogue of politics. We have 71,000 immigrant families and children separated from parents. We have people dying on the streets from homelessness. We have hopelessness, suicide, opioid addiction. We're losing our youth, and yet they're finding their voices on the streets of America. So I'm just taking one little small grain of sand in the midst of this dialogue, which are the women, those that birth and nurture human life, that have been forgotten about, that are being destroyed and raped as much as the Mother Earth. The Earth needs a voice. The women of the world need a voice, and the children that are being protected and raised need a voice. So I'm attempting to give them a voice and a platform for the short window of time that I'm gracing the earth. That's what I'm called to do.
That's amazing. One of the big themes is pulling people together, including young people and older. And it reminds me very much, I mean, we really need to ensure that young people who are in a position to stand up and make a difference do that, and don't feel too cynical or unimportant. I remember as a law student asking my law professor, who's become a great mentor of mine, who represented actually Nelson Mandela back in the day, what can I do in a world that can often make us feel cynical or even indifferent? And he encouraged me to heed the words of the great sage Maimonides, who postulated that we should look at the world as if it is half good and half evil. And if you think about it that way, one good deed, and I tell this to my children all the time, whether it be helping a friend with homework or helping an elderly person to cross the street or calling a grandparent to say hello, one good deed could tip the scales from evil to good. So in a sense, we all have this cosmic opportunity really to transform the world for the better.
Yes. And you brought something really beautifully in that, Jay. That's that intergenerational conversation. We seem to forget about this bridge. Why we used to have these extraordinary relationships between grandparents and grandchildren is because that intergenerational conversation is so important. It is so important to take the wisdom from those that laid the foundation, those that wrote the books, that created the science, that shed their blood, that created the architecture, that wrote and orchestrated the operas, you know, the teachers of the world, the tree, our actual tree. We have forgotten that as the fruit, inside of that fruit, all of the seeds of potential and purpose come because we were nurtured and held on the branch and the wisdom of our tree. That's our elders. And so we have to get back to that conversation between the two groups. We have to be committed to honoring and respecting our elders.
100%. And when you talk about light, I can't help but rejoice in seeing the light behind you, the menorah. You're just a light onto the world. And as I say, Kunal, it's just the beginning, but I think Piper can play such an important role in helping us move transformational change from one generation to the next.
Yes, can I just say to the world, write your name upon the metaphoric tree of life, all of you, because an unexamined life is not worth living. Write your name on that tree because you matter. We all matter. We're here for a great purpose.
Thank you so much, Piper. Piper, like Jay said, this is just the beginning of, God willing, extraordinary blessings to come.
Yes.
I really feel like it's a blessing to have you with us, your presence, and your home, which I can't come and visit. I can't wait to come and visit at some
You're invited.
And we'll take you home to India from there. You know,
yes,
as well as here in New York.
Invited me to India as well. AR said, "Come and stay with me."
Yeah, we love doing that. We love just taking you guys home and letting you stay with us. So that's 100%.
Piper and I were with AR when we did the recording of Hands Around the World. Piper has played a very important role in all of this as well. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm blessed to be part of that. And we would love for you to be part of We Have a Dream and, you know, empowering the youth to make the impossible possible.
It would be an honor. It would be an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, that was a real blessing. And having her in our midst, and that message is so positive and resonates with me deeply at my core. Thank you, Piper. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, everyone.